All right, we're live now. Hopefully, I don't have to stitch together various separate files like I did last week because I am not good at editing. But who wants to summarize what happened last time? Presumably not Mike, since he was only here for the first three-quarters of it.
All right, Mike.
Um,
All right. Well, I know at least the beginning. We started out looking into Elise and her situation. So we went to the brewery and got some beers. She was really suspicious, and she decided to try to fake trip and take off my hood, which I just let her do, even though I had an opportunity to stop her. And then she's just being all weird. Clearly has something to hide. And I know Lucia Rossi stepped out for a moment, knowing that Hellweir and T-Hole were going to be up to no good and unable to be persuaded away from their course of action. So rather than be present for it, Lucia Rossi just kind of stepped outside. I know that Hellweir at some point attempted to headbutt the Elise, and there were shenanigans, and people were getting knocked over, and things were falling, and Elise was knocked unconscious, I believe, at some point.
No, she was on a ladder tending to her vats of ale, and he tried to tackle the ladder that I think so that she would be knocked out.
Yeah, no, she caught her feet. Like, she just jumped down and then started beating me.
She originally caught her hands on the vat, so she didn't fall flat. She just had to fall a couple feet.
Yeah. So after that whole debacle, we just kind of took off, and of course, the husband was on the way back as well. And despite all the shenanigans, we actually stopped and talked to him for a minute. Just basically let him know his wife is cray-cray. And then we decided to check out the Mystics' home on the island. So we stopped at Clump Lagoons to get her rowboat and rowed out to the island. And then when we got there, it had gotten dark. We then proceeded to follow something that we saw in the darkness, which led us to a clearing with some standing stones surrounding the area. And a person was there talking about how we were not worthy, that we should not get the crown. And we're like, no, dog, we're going to do what we do. So I think that was Hellweir's way of saying and then the dude turned into a ghost, which Lucia Rossi pummeled, but not before it had possessed Hellweir, who was unfortunate to get some critical failures in terms of wisdom saves. And then after that, we went to the shack of the home of the Mystic, and then that's where I pieced out.
and I can pick up the piece here. So then things went haywire and poorly. So we were looking to see what was going on, and we stumbled upon the crown, the peaceful crown, as we later found out, which was in the floorboard in a box, in a lead box, so as to prevent itself from being detected by magic, with a silver outlining. And there's kind of papers all over the table. There were 3 lights that kind of mingled here and there over the bed. And then we failed our perception checks miserably, so we didn't see the spirits coming. And then we were beset by a ghost. So then another one came. And it was unfortunate that Lucirosi was kind of dazed and confused because it turns out that they were both resistant to physical damage as well as fire, which was all that we really had at our disposal. So we killed two of them. T-Hole almost died. He got hit a couple times and failed some con saves. So after we killed those two, we made our way to the boats. Hellweir, one more came after us, and Hellweir killed it valiantly.
Yeah, one hit from death.
Yeah, you did miss the part where almost certainly T-Hole would have been dead, except for the fact that Hellweir managed to taunt the ghost with his pile of elf ears.
Oh yeah,
which made the elven ghost retarget him and leave T-Hole alone.
Yeah, I just poured all my elf ears out onto the floor, and they just started attacking me. Why would they do such a thing?
Ludicrous.
Yeah. So now the new quest is to get my elf ears off the island, guys. So thanks.
Or just have to collect more.
Oh, collect more. Yeah.
So then we get loaded up on the boat, and we sailed back. Lucirosi dropped the boat off with a clump of wounds, and Hellweir and T-Hole retired to the inn. And the innkeep was slumped over, and we kind of everybody was out on the streets because they saw all the lights going crazy much earlier than normal. T-Hole kind of mentioned to the innkeep that island was cursed, and that there were a lot of ghosts on there at a high level. We did a long rest, and when we woke up in the morning, there was a note underneath the door, or I don't know if it was under each of our doors, but at least under T-Hole's door, saying, "You're not wanted here, get out," or something along those lines.
Yeah, it was under T-Hole's door.
So that's where we ended up leaving the game. So.
Yep. So it's not super early in the morning because you slept in a bit after being near death, but it's still relatively early in the morning on the day after this, and you're in the inn.
So T-Hole walks out in his underwear, unfazed by the note, because he generally knows when he's not wanted. He was, after all, ousted from his empire. So he walks out in his underwear and knocks on both Hellweir and Lucirosi's doors and holds the note like kind of up like this.
So is it just your underwear, or like the underwear and the crown?
Underwear and the crown.
So despite the cowl hiding Lucirosi's face, you can hear the slight grin in his voice as he says, "The crown suits you, T-Hole." And then he takes a note to examine it. Can I do any kind of perhaps an investigation check with my Inquisitor background to see if I can maybe glean any kind of anything from the handwriting style, or the way that the words are coming together, or anything compared to the way that others have talked to us?
Yes. What is your Inquisitor? What's the Inquisitor background give you? What's their benefit?
The benefit is where is it? Legal authority. As an inquisitor of the church, you have the authority to arrest criminals. In the absence of other authorities, you are authorized to pass judgment and even carry out sentencing. If you
Okay.
abuse this power, however, your superiors in the church might strip it from you.
Yeah. I mean, you could do an investigation check. I just didn't know if that impacted it or not.
No, not from a mechanical point of view, but from
Right.
perhaps a role playing point of view.
Yeah, but you can do the. You can tell that it's, yeah, it is definitely from someone who is pretty good at writing, and that's not a normal skill anymore. Most peasants can't write, so most of your typical farmers and the like wouldn't be able to write things. Most merchants would be able to write on some level. This is it's probably like a merchant script.
Okay. So I eyeball the text a little bit, perhaps even taking out a magnifying glass of some sort to examine it. And I let everybody else know the individual that wrote this is a bit more refined than one might expect from a simple peasant. This is perhaps somebody much more educated, or even a merchant of some sort. I don't know who we might have met in this town that would have written something like this.
There's only one woman that fits the bill, and that's the leader. Who is the person that was in charge of
The woman mayor.
like the woman that, what's her name?
Sorry, woman in charge of what?
She was the one who came up to us and said she was like the replacement mayor, I guess.
Oh yeah, the head of the militia, Siobhan Drummond.
Siobhan.
This is all Siobhan's doing. I know it. She's the only woman with enough balls around here to write such a note.
Wait a minute.
And you see, at that point, you see from one of the doors closer to the stairway, Haverford comes out. He's got some dirty rags with him and a bucket of water.
Morning, Haverford. Beautiful day, ain't it?
I suppose it's a little cold outside today.
Excuse me, Haverford, but did you notice anybody coming in and out of the tavern? We received a note, and we're wondering if you might know who might have delivered it.
I mean, so far this morning, a couple people have come in and gotten breakfasts, but I didn't notice anyone up here.
Interesting.
Can I do an insight check against that?
Yep. He seems like he is surprised to hear there was anyone up here other than you guys.
Haverford, my chap, have you seen? Do you deal with the town? Do you see much of the writing of the various townsfolk around here?
Some of them. I mean, most people around here can't write.
Fair enough. If we showed you a script, would you be able to maybe discern who it came from?
Yeah, maybe.
So Zeho will show him. He he swings his arm or swivels his arm towards. He's like, somebody clearly doesn't like our presence, and I'm just upset. And I'm like holding it in front of him as like the note.
Hold on, I will have Haverford do an investigation check. Just an intelligence check for him. It's hard to say. I mean, it could be Could be Elise Brewers, I guess. I don't see her writing all that often.
Well, she did have the hots for me. I would want her away. I would want myself away from her if I were her too.
She definitely had the most negative attitude towards our presence being here, and she was acting rather strangely when we encountered her yesterday.
I did almost kill her.
Well, she was acting rather strangely prior to that. I imagine her actions afterwards were quite in line with what she needed to deal with.
And she was here this morning to get breakfast.
She seems like the sneaky type that would crawl up to T-Hole's room unawares, slipping things under his door.
I mean,
Yes.
I don't know about that. She's an elderly woman.
T-Hole, thou boast far too great.
If you excuse me, I have to clean the other rooms.
Yes, yes.
He locks the door he just came out of behind him and then goes across the hall to the next bedroom.
So at that I signal for the others to come near. And I say, look, we're seeking Samus, but it's clear that this town has need of us. And Clumpful-Boon's made it very clear that she's expecting Samus to return. I also suspect that Haverford here is also expecting Samus. He's keeping several rooms unoccupied, as if he's saving them for somebody. I think that he believes that they'll return. So it might be in our best interest, despite these warnings that we're receiving, to remain here in town. At the very least, we can act as protectors should another attack occur, or at the very least, investigate any further incidents.
I might have an idea.
Whoa.
I had a nightmare. I was an elf. But that elf
That
was
was
Triandal.
Quite a nightmare for you, Hellweir.
It was the greatest of nightmares. And then also my arms and legs were ripped off. But besides the point, I was
for you, but the other way around, I imagine.
actually, yeah, that was probably the best part. But anyways, I was Triandal, and there are a few questions which we have answered, such as the Electrum coins. That weird Electrum coin that we found. It was
Lucia Rossi then pulls it from his pack. You mean this one?
Yes. Alkai Tor was rich with Electrum before it was cursed. We have to, and the swamp, there was a temple there, and it has created what is now the swamp.
I don't understand how that has anything to do with a curse, especially a curse that may be upon this coin.
Does sorry, go on.
No, you say something. I'm gonna go back and read a little bit.
I was gonna say, like, does this sound familiar to T-Hole at all?
Give me a history check. Although the DC's pretty high on this one, it's pretty obscure.
All right.
Oh, 25. Yes, in fact, you are vaguely aware that in this region there was a war between what you now assume to be this village and a group of separatist elves who were trying to worship a different god. And they at one point had a series of conflicts over about 80 years between the two sets of elves. One set of elves that got thrown out of this village, probably, and established a settlement to the north. And they are said to have built a stone ziggurat in honor of their god, which was which was Moraine, which is sort of heretical for elves to have elves worshiping Moraine.
And it's Melora as the other one.
Yep.
What's Moraine the god of?
Nature and magic.
And morale is not.
Melora is more sort of healing and death.
So it's normal for elves to worship the god of death.
Yeah, she is. They were physically born from her flesh. They're like her children.
Mm.
In a very literal sense.
I see. T-Hole relays this to the group. Well, there was a civil war here some time back. Did I know how long ago that was, or was just like some time ago?
It was about 500 years ago.
There was about a civil war here about 500 years ago between a couple elves who got all upstarty and, couldn't live with being a part of an empire. So then they had to go build their own stone ziggurat up to the north. And I guess it's probably where the swamps are. It's been a little while, but old T-Hole has read and lived his history books.
Yeah, in your memory of it, you don't remember their settlement being in a swamp, however. It was in plains to the north.
Oh. I'll say it. So yeah, it wasn't in a swamp, but it was up north.
So Lucharosi kind of scratches his temple through his hood, and then says, "I still fail to see the connection. I do know that Asheros and his kindred are known to send visions through dreams, and so it's possible that what Hellweir experienced may be some kind of omen or have some significance. That perhaps this civil war did take place at some point in the past, but how does that connect with the events that are happening now? What does that have to do with this coin?"
The curse obviously has not been lifted. The swamp is still excreting its curse.
But what curse? To my understanding, the events that have been afflicting this village have only happened fairly recently.
Yes, you would not know because you are not an elf. Only elves would know.
I fail to understand, Hellweir.
Only the elves.
I hear you speak.
Only the elves can be affected by the darkness.
Sure, but my understanding is that elves have made this their home for quite some time, without incident. The events seem to have been rather recent, hence the reason that the villagers are so concerned. They wouldn't be concerned if this is a normal occurrence and has been happening for over 500 years.
Maybe they found a way to keep the spirits quiet. And maybe the disappearance of somebody has then started it all over again.
Now that is an interesting idea. Hellweir, this is one of the few times when I may actually give you accolades for your contribution to the conversation. Well done. But it is true that the mystic, his brother, had only recently passed. And I believe, if I remember correctly, the first building that had burned was the longhouse to the mystic.
I know that house. That is Triandel's house.
Yes, Triandel's home. That was burnt to the ground, but it was burned from within.
That's right. He was fighting. He was fighting the white fur demons. And then
Life for demons, you say?
yes,
To shred,
they,
you say?
they come from the darkness, and they came out from him inside his house, and he threw the lantern, missing, and resulting in his house being burnt down.
Interesting. So then, by that account, given the long lives of elves, 500 years is something that Tiandrol himself could have managed watch of this town and been its guardian. And without him, the attacks had begun. That is an interesting idea.
And then after that, my arms and legs were torn off by the white demons.
Did you get a good look at the demons?
They come from the darkness. I think they are very hard to see. We better bring some torches or some dark vision, because these elves had a very hard time seeing them themselves. And you would think
you never speak so highly of elves, so I wouldn't necessarily put that past them.
Yes, maybe their dark vision cursed them as well.
Since we did a long rest, I'm gonna redo my spells known.
Okay.
I'm just rereading the note.
I'm looking for a picture of the white fur demons that doesn't actually say the name of them, but I don't see.
Yes, so about the Electrum coin, there was the leaders forbid people using the Electrum, and all the ruins and it was a very confusing time.
Interesting. So one thing that I'm going to do while we're talking, because I'm expecting, now that I'm hearing the curse and pieces are starting to fall to get into place, I'm going to cast this upon us. Everybody gets an additional 5 hit points.
Aw, yeah.
Whew.
And that lasts 8 hours, right?
Yep.
Excellent.
If it lasts more than that, you should call your doctor.
And then I'll get rid of heroism. Oh. Heroism and put protection from evil and good. Yeah.
Okay. So, when I was reading this note before, and now I guess now that I kind of remember, T-Hole remembers like what, kind of the general like history of this area. This note makes more sense. So like he kind of pulls it out, because I'm assuming we took it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He pulls it out and he like looks at it and he like takes a closer look and he's like, ah. So we must go to the swamp. It's all so obvious now. All signs point to the swamp. Maybe we can get Haverford to come. We'll give up a life of boring servitude and get elbow deep in some swamp water.
I don't know that it would be quite wise to go to the swamp just yet. Based on the amount of time that we've been here in this village, we are getting closer to the potential for an attack. and I think that it would be best if we were able to provide some kind of support to the town. Additionally, if my intuition is correct, Samus will be coming right to us. He'll be returning, and if that's the case, I would feel much more comfortable knowing that he was accompanying us into the swamp, given his familiarity with that terrain.
I'm taking a wild guess in that Samus probably wouldn't want to go back into the swamp after heading back that way.
I'm sure we can convince him.
Also, he has things at home to tend to. The last thing he may want to do is to continue going back into danger. He may want to go back and take precautionary measures to protect his loved ones at home and his other beardless heathen.
This is true.
Brethren.
He also values this axe with the boar's head. If I were to tell him that there's a possibility that through the power of Asheros, I might be able to assist him in finding this, he may be more amenable to our cause. And additionally, we must bring him forth for the mission that we have at hand with, what is her name, Loki?
Yep, Lokexicus.
Yeah, with Loki. And so it would be far better if we can make him a comrade in arms rather than forcing him into the situation where we're presumably using him simply as a key to finding what our true goal is.
Did you say something about a boar?
Indeed.
What of a boar that do you know of?
I know that boars are creatures that live in forests and are vicious.
You know not the way of boars, but what boars are.
I just had a flashback on a memory of Triandal and how he captured boars from the forest and used them to protect the village. Is there some sort... What... why?
Perhaps we are meant to be boar herders, and we must continue in Triandal's wake and herd all the boar and form a boar army. Yes.
I'm not sure about that necessarily, but one potential option may be that, given we have some time to kill as it is, it may be best if we tried to locate this object that Samus was searching for to begin with. It would be better to convince him to come with us should we have the object to actually offer him. And additionally, if Triandal had anything to do with this, and it may have some link to the way that he protected the village.
Is this the mace, the Solarasi?
No. The mace was something different. Columphalaboons described that mace to us. It resides within the swamp. The mace was used by, I believe the mace was used by one of the unfortunate souls that did not make it back with Elise.
That may be the item which curses this place. I remember seeing it move, not like a weapon, but more so as a life. I'm starting to sound like one of these stupid elves. I hate it.
You're spending too much time with them.
Your words. Return to the grunts that you're used to.
Perhaps this is the effect of not having enough elf hairs on you. They are rewarding away elven tendencies, and now that you've lost them, you're becoming an elf.
I must find them. Where is that young elven woman? I want her ears.
I'll be right back.
And Haverford comes out of the second room with his rags and bucket and walks past you to a third.
Well,
So, yeah.
is
I think it's clear that we must head to the swamp. There's nothing here but death and stupidity.
I like that this is coming from a man standing in a hallway in his underwear.
That should give him more weight to his words. Because if a man in his underwear in a hallway is telling you it's stupid.
Maybe there's a name that I heard when my arms and legs were ripped off. Corral Hull. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe Haverford knows. Let's go find him. And I walk over to the door where Haverford is. And I like, is the door locked?
No, it's open. He just seems to be
Okay.
cleaning. I mean, looking in, it's kind of more or less identical to the rooms you're in. There's, a set of boots and some extra clothes are laying on the bed. And he's moving things around. He picks up a shield that was laid in the corner and sets that down so he can clean out the corner.
And I just look at him, like I say, Haverford, Corral Hull. And I just look at him in his eyes, waiting for a response.
And he says, I don't speak Dwarvish, but if you can, what does that mean?
Thank you, Haverford. Goodbye.
I was really hoping Haverford would say bless you.
We must go find the dwarven lady.
You mean Grazma?
Unless you guys know anything about Dwarvish.
That is not a tongue that I am familiar with.
I only know relevant tongues. So, we must go to the swamp. I'm telling you, that is where we must be. That is the root of all evil.
I must have been lost in my elven trance, but I actually know Dwarven.
You are, if you know Dwarvish, then you know that this is not a Dwarven word.
Haverford's an idiot. Don't worry.
By Asheros. T-Hole, I agree that the swamp is worth investigating, but I do not think it is the time to go just yet. I still think that it would be best if we waited for Samus to return.
He's not going to return?
And Haverford says, well, he said he was going to return, although he said he was going to return after a couple of days. I'm beginning to wonder what to do with all this crap they left behind. And he throws the shield back in the corner.
Crap! Why did they leave this crap behind? It looks hideous.
It's just extra weight. I assume they didn't need every suit of clothes that they brought with them. And so they left a bunch of stuff here so that they, I don't know where they were going, but wherever they were going, they wanted to pack light.
Why?
Sounds like they headed into the swamp. The only place where you wouldn't want to be weighed down.
Well, I mean, most people don't want to carry more than they have to. They're not adventurers like you people. Although why anyone would go into the swamp is beyond me.
Because that's where our doom presides, Haverford. It is our mission.
What do you mean that's where our doom resides? Are you saying that whatever took my wife and children is in the swamp?
That's precisely what I'm saying. Are you bold enough to adventure with us to the swamp and free or find this thing?
I mean, I'm not much of a fighter myself, but if you need my, I also don't own any weapons apart from my frying pan. But if you need me to come, I will.
I need your
that-
breakfast.
Is that where Gruzza goes when she goes on her walks? Is she going into the swamp?
Have you seen her walk to the swamp?
I've seen her walk north out of the village, but I've not followed her, so I have no idea if she actually went to the swamp or not. But it's possible.
I don't think anybody who leaves the swamp will be left alive unless they come back with no arms and no legs.
What?
Generally, those people don't survive Hellweir.
If they are strong-willed, they would.
You can see Haverford is rethinking following you people into the swamp. I can certainly do breakfast. I'll be down in 2 minutes.
Wonderful. That's just as good. Putting that frying pan to great use. So we have the potential lead that Elise Brewer may have written this note.
Who is the person who walks at night?
That's Elise Brewer.
And she isn't an elf?
No, she's human.
She may have some sort of mystic mentality or some sort of mystic gift, because there's something which calls from the swamp. That's possibly why the elves are walking out towards that way. I can assume that someone with some sort of mystic gift would be able to pick up on this voice as well.
Are you saying that the elves? Are you saying that the missing elves are walking to the north towards the swamp willingly?
Well, if you call cursed magic willingly, yes.
I suppose it depends on how cursed.
Cursed enough to rip your arms and legs off and leave you.
You do know that some bodies have turned up just dead. One of the when you first got here, both of Hector and Pallas's daughters were dead. A third one was missing, and there was talk about humans who had died. When people had been taken away?
Maybe they died on the way to the swamp.
So I thought it was that elves went missing, but people died. Humans died.
Right. Only elves and half elves have gone missing, but humans have died.
Yeah, but there are some elves that have also died.
Yes.
Okay. That have turned up.
Yes.
Perhaps it is not so foolhardy to go into the swamp, but I might suggest waiting to follow Elise or Raza as they make their walks to see if they head towards the swamp. That way, at least, we are on a path that will not necessarily get us lost within the swamp. Additionally, it might be good to request the services of the Falconer.
I mean, technically, where you would know,
seems...
you can't possibly get lost because Ranger.
Oh, in the forest, yeah.
It's anywhere. You just can't lose your way. That doesn't necessarily mean you know where you're going.
Right.
So, like, if you're in the swamp and the path you're following just sort of ends, you don't necessarily know how to move forward without swimming, but you know how to get out again because you know where you walked.
Hmm. I'm pretty good with directions, but I don't think I think this isn't a normal environment. I think it changes.
Well, yeah, swamps shift and move.
Hmm. That might not be helpful when trying to leave the swamp.
We could bring a boat.
Do you really want to drag a boat for God knows how many? For Asheros knows how many miles?
We could build a boat when we get there. Hell, we're strong.
Hmm.
And you're smart. And I'm wise. I'm sure we could craft a boat that doesn't sink after 5 minutes.
I do not think that would be a great use of our limited resources. Regardless, we need to figure out how we are going to proceed. We need Samus to complete our initial task, and we cannot, in good conscience, leave this village to its own devices. Otherwise, it is sure to fall apart.
Well, there will always be a village that needs help. Can't help them all.
That does not mean that we should not strive to do our best.
It's just
The idea of perfection is not in the attainment of it, but the pursuit of it.
what was this thing which the mystic was doing to keep the curse so quiet? That might be interesting to know. Maybe this town just needs another mystic.
That would be helpful if we knew where to find one.
Maybe the brewer.
Do you have an understanding of the difference between mystic and brewer? Beer and ale is certainly something that is magical in its own way, but that does not mean those that create it are mystics.
Mm. No, I meant the mad woman. The mad woman brewer.
I do not get the sense that she would be a source of safety in this situation. She seems much more devious and dark. There's something about her. I can't quite place it. I haven't experienced it before, but there is a darkness about her.
Maybe she was touched by this dark one that was on this note.
It's possible. Regardless, I think our best course of action is to wait until Elise goes on her walks and to follow from a distance to see where she goes. And if she should go into the swamp, then so be it. I think it would be good to have somebody with us who knows their way about, but I think that this would be the best course of action.
So
Well, I
spy on the
suppose we could
villagers.
wait until nightfall. But what are we going to do today?
We may need weapons. Hopefully, we can get some made.
This village probably has
see the-
naught but clubs.
To see the quality of this village, even if they did have a blacksmith, or
If they do.
if we could,
Graza.
or if we could, well, I was just about to say, or even if we could somehow convince Graza to help us, who seems very much against our presence to begin with. I doubt that any weapons be made in time. Perhaps
We have the we have the dagger. Someone must have made that, and if a skilled smith would be able to replicate or use that material into another weapon, that most likely would be useful.
Yeah, you would
Hellware.
know. Hellware would know that that dagger came with Triandal from the Eldith Forest. He brought it here before he founded the village.
And while Hellware is remembering that, I would say, listen, Hellware, I do not proclaim myself to be a smithy of any sort, but I imagine simply looking at a weapon does not give a smithy the skill or the insight into how it was made specifically, especially if magic of some sort is woven into the design.
All I know is that we're not well equipped for another fight with ghosts. And if that ghost means darkness or some sort of white-haired beast, we are going to need newer weapons. Ones which can do magical damage.
Well, certainly we may need some additional resources, but unfortunately, while Asheros is great in all his wisdom, and he does provide miracles, we would need nothing short of a miracle to be suddenly armed with the kind of weapons that you suggest we might need.
Well, then pray for him, because we need him. And if he does not, well, then he is not real.
Asheros is real, regardless of his willingness or ability to answer the prayers of a single paladin in his name. He has many affairs to which he must attend. And so, if he does not directly intervene in our affairs, it is not evidence that he is not present, simply that priorities lie elsewhere.
He sounds like a shit god.
At that point, Lucirosi raises to his full height and says, I deal with a lot from you, but you will watch your tongue when you speak of my God. Regardless of your willingness to worship him, you will respect me and you will respect him.
Yes. The Lord of Miracles who cannot grant true and being shit, yes. What a great god.
I will remind you that not but a few hours ago, it was by his will that I was able to cast out a spirit, that it invaded your mind and took control of your body. Or have you forgotten that already, Hellweir?
It was also
too many blows to the head.
It was also his will.
He is right, Hellweir. Regardless of whether or not Asheros actually exists, the power that inspired in our great friend here certainly did save you. So, regardless of the source, you should be thankful.
It was also his will that let you stand at the door and let ghosts walk into the house and nearly kill us.
I am not proud of my actions after the fight, but I was afflicted by something. I can't quite explain it, but my inability to act at that moment is no indication and no slight against the power of Asheros. So please be mindful of the way that you speak of him.
Very well, if he's so strong.
When you speak ill of Asheros, you speak ill of me. And we are companions.
Well,
and there are going to be times when we are going to need each other. I think that you would do well to recognize that regardless of your actual thoughts and feelings, that you can withhold your tongue from speaking them directly, or else you might find that Asheros's will points me in a different direction when you need me most.
I see you speak true, but you should be able to rid the curse from here if you had such great powers, and your god did as well.
I do not claim to have great power. I have the power provided to me through Asheros. This is not a matter for debate. It is not something that I claim to be greater than I am. And the fact that I am not enough to single-handedly solve the world's problems is no indication of the might or power of Asheros. It simply means, as I said, that his will is beyond our understanding because, unlike us, he knows all and can see all through the light that shines upon the world. And with that, he, in his wisdom, has made fit to direct his will and his energy where it is most needed. And just because it is not directly needed here at this time does not mean that the things that we seek to do are not important, but that there are simply greater things that require his direct attention.
Perhaps Lucia Rossi, you can forgive Helwir for being uninformed of and uneducated in the doctrine of which you are a part of. You have spoken at great length, and almost I've fallen asleep about Asheros, but yet you've never actually described or talked about him in any meaningful way other than he is all-knowing and all-being. So I assume that I'm making some assumptions here, but I would hope that you would understand that unenlightened individuals such as ourselves may be skeptical and asked not to use harsh words and harsh tones on those who have not yet fallen in the same path as you.
There is a difference between skepticism and outright disrespect. I understand.
Sometimes
I understand that there is need to be skeptical. I understand the importance of being able to see with one's own eyes. And I understand the importance of faith. And just because these things are not necessarily shared by somebody as ignorant as Helwir is clearly making himself to be at this moment, does not mean that he has the right to outright disrespect me, just as I do not have the right to outright disrespect the progeny that sired the ilk before me. For your ears, Helwir, that means that I do not have the right to talk smack about your parents or your siblings that maybe you have and maybe you don't. But regardless,
and at that
I have
point,
a right.
Haverford comes out of the room hearing, having heard the whole argument because he was only a couple feet away, and says, I don't know if any of the weapons they left behind are magical, but they did leave a lot of gear in these rooms. I mean, if that helps you end the curse, so much the better. I'm sure they wouldn't mind your using it. Well, they might, but I'm sure I don't mind.
you see Helwir, you claim to think that Asheros does not grant us gifts, and yet here he has allowed Haverford to direct us to something that might yet help us in combating the evils that we face.
If anything, Haverford's our god and not yours. Now let's go.
And then, we'll just take. I mean, T-Hole doesn't really wear armor, so he'll just kind of poke around and see if there's like a something better than his quarterstaff.
Give me anybody who's looking. Give me investigation checks.
Oh, T-Hole.
So, T-Hole, you find a letter, and you find three hand axes that are so ornate that they seem almost impractical, which suggests that they may be enchanted. Because if they were worried about carrying extra weight, why would they bother to bring fancy ceremonial hand axes? And you also find a letter, but it's in Dwarven. But looking around, you're pretty sure that this room you're in was probably same as Holbein's, because the clothes are clearly fit for a dwarf, and most of the equipment does look like what you would expect an axe wielding dwarf to use.
Can I? I'm gonna take one of the hand axes.
Okay.
Are they like throwing axes, or
They're hand axes. They can be thrown or used in melee.
Okay.
The
T-Hole.
letter you can't read because it's in Dwarven.
T-Hole, you have a talent for seeing magical auras. Perhaps that can help us identify the equipment that might be best suited to the task, since Hellweir believes that the creatures we must fight can only be damaged by enchanted items.
Right. And also, Hellweir, you find a small box, like maybe 2 inches long, and in it are a set of circular crystals, a pair of circular crystals. Fairly thin. They're cut like lenses. But you could tell just by opening up from the way there's like light sparkling in them that they must be magical.
This may be more suited for you, T-Hole. I'll swap you for the axes.
Yes, I could use some new earrings. I lost mine centuries ago.
You may have to look through them. I'm not sure, but that might be them. I'm not sure.
So T-Hole's gonna like take he'll give Hellweir the hand axe, and he'll take the lens looking things, and he'll like take one out and like looks through it.
They magnify things greatly.
So he like swivels around and like looks at Lucirosi.
It's very difficult to make anything out beyond a foot, but within a foot, it's the magnification on these is incredible. Clearly magical, in fact.
Fascinating. These will come in handy later.
Or you have a very fancy monocle.
Well, there's 2 of them.
2 monocles. You have a very fancy set of glasses.
Like, make an Arcana check.
Okay.
That's high enough. These are eyes of minute seeing. So if you wear both of them, you get advantage on all investigation checks for anything that's visually triggered within 1 foot. But if you wear both of them, they don't impair your normal vision.
So like you can, even if you're looking at things further than a foot away.
Yeah, but you have to have both of them on to see clearly with them.
But are they 2 separate lenses, or are they like?
They're like contact lenses, 2 separate ones.
Okay, so I would have to like have some kind of device to keep them on my face.
I mean, you could, but you could wear them like contact lenses. They will mold to your eyes.
Oh, so I could just leave them in.
Yes.
Ooh. So T-Hole's gonna do that, and he's gonna he pulls open his eye, and he like looks at Lucirosi, and he puts it in, and he's like, "You look so clear." And then he puts the next one in.
Yeah, like I said, but when you have one in, everything beyond a foot is a little bit blurry and hard to see with that eye. But when the second one goes in, your vision clears and you can see normally again, except everything that's within 1 foot of you looks incredibly more detailed than it did before.
How do the hairs on my arm look?
You can actually see that some of the hairs on your arms have tiny little split ends.
Oh man, I really need to get my hair cut more often.
You may need arm hair conditioner.
Well, I'm sure Samus won't mind because he's not coming back. And if he does, then we'll send my regards later. I can send him a thank you note from my retinue.
T-Hole, have you tried to use your senses to see if there are any specific magical auras within this room?
I haven't. I suppose I could. I'll use detect magic.
Okay. In another room, you sense that there's an enchantment aura, but it's coming from a place where you didn't notice it before. You pulling the bed out in the other room, you find that there's a small scroll case that's pressed between the bed and the wall that falls to the floor.
I pick up the scroll case and open it and unfurl one of the scrolls.
So you open it up. Inside there are two scrolls, separate scrolls. One is a scroll of Fireball. The other one is a scroll of Misty Step.
Ooh. I say, and I was like, and I look at him like, spells. Well, I've studied at least one of these very, very well. So, would either of you like this one? And I hand them the Fireball scroll.
I am not able to use scrolls of magic such as these. I'm not even sure that I'm capable of reading what it says upon the scroll.
I would be more suited to putting it on a fire than casting a fireball.
Well, maybe I can use it to barter. And I kind of tuck it in my pocket.
What pocket? You're in your underwear.
In your undies.
Yeah, my underwear pocket.
Oh.
Is there so with scrolls, they're one-time use, right?
Yes.
And is there any components that are needed, or is it just like read the scroll and then?
Yeah, you just read the scroll.
Okay.
Or you can use the scroll to copy things into your spell book, and that'll use them up.
Okay. So if I copy a scroll into my spell book, then I have that?
Then you have the spell, yeah.
Okay, well, cool. Let's see, what school is Missy Step from?
Conjuration, I assume, but I'd have to look it up.
Conjuration.
Let's see.
So wait, who has a dagger? So T-Hole, you got the crown, you got the lenses, you got the scrolls. Who's got the dagger?
He's also got the dagger. We're just outfitting our king, you know.
I didn't take the dagger.
You
had it last time. You took it out.
Yeah, I gave it. I said, yeah, I wouldn't be able to use it, so I just gave it to you.
Oh, I thought you took it.
No, I'm outfitting the king.
You did when you were fighting the specters, make like a weak, like one attack with the dagger, but you missed.
Well, I don't want to hog all the glory here. And then then I asked Lucirosi, would you like this dagger? Fighting not much of my forte, at least in the physical sense.
I do not have much use for a dagger necessarily, though. I suppose it could serve as a useful backup weapon should I need it.
That's up to you. I just want to make sure I'm being fair.
I expected Teal to say, I don't want to hog all the glory here, and then just walk downstairs.
All right, I'll take the dagger.
Did you attune to the crown, by the way?
That just takes like a.
You could have done it during the long rest when you.
Yeah, I didn't take it off. I just assumed I was wearing it, and
Yeah.
I could take some kind of spending time with it to attune, right? Or a
Yep.
short rest at least.
Yeah, but
So,
yeah, I would have let you do it during the long rest.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
I was thinking that you did, and that's why I didn't make you do a saving throw. Because once again, everything in here lights up with magic, and it just takes a second or two to narrow it down to the specific magic items that you found.
Yeah, I'm attuned. The emperor the new emperor or emperor's new groove is ready. So after that, T-Hole just he's like, let's get some breakfast, and he walks downstairs in his underwear again.
And you see the only person in there at the moment is the shirtless elf that you saw the day before. And he seems to be sitting there. He's reading something, some parchment in his hand as he slurps up what looks like it's maybe oatmeal, maybe gruel. Hard to tell the difference. And Haverford had walked past you previously after suggesting you could use whatever items these people left behind. And he had gone downstairs. So you can see him in the back. He seems to be cooking something up. And Haverford says, just have a seat. I'll have breakfast for you in a minute.
Wonderful. And I'll sit down and I'll look over towards the shirtless elf. Like, morning.
And he looks over at you very quickly and says, nods his head and says, morning to you.
How are you? Beautiful morning, ain't it?
You haven't been outside. It's cold for this place. It's very cold, but sure.
Did you catch the light show last night?
Certainly did. Was wondering what that was all about. Sometimes you hear tales of silver orbs in the sky that come and kidnap people, which I think has something to do with the curse, or at least I did. Now I'm less sure because there's so many possible culprits. But I don't know if it was the silver orbs or not. It seemed more like, maybe Gruzza was using some kind of magic. There are a couple different theories on that too. What do you know about it? Do you know what the magic lights were?
They were spirits.
So this guy's clearly elven, and he looks a little surprised. Spirits? Do you mean like elven spirits?
Oh yes, terrifyingly so.
Well, I've never known them to make lights like that before, but I'll add it to the list.
The list?
Yeah, the list of theories about what the lights are.
Well, theories are, I guess it's not really a theory. It is what it is. But
yeah, well, everybody thinks their theory is the right one. I'm the only one who actually pays attention and collects all the theories, knowing that one of these days I will be able to pick the correct one. But for now, I just have to listen and keep my ears open until the right one presents itself to me.
Interesting.
Well, if you
I'm sorry, what is your name again, sir?
I'm Milan. I'm the town carpenter.
Milan. Would you be opposed to sharing with us some of these theories that you've heard?
Oh, sure. And he picks up his bowl and comes over and sits down and then looks at T-Hole and says, Did you murder our king? And he takes his parchment and starts scribbling something down on it. He has a little pot of a little tiny jar of ink that he takes out of a pouch and a quill.
What's your theory?
Well,
I interrupt them all and say, there was no murder. Believe me, as a paladin of Asheros, there is no murder that has taken place.
That's what they want you to think.
What's your theory?
I think it's pretty clear that he was murdered. They never found a body. Now, they say, though, the body was just completely burned up in the longhouse, but there is a lot of debris left in that longhouse, and it takes a lot of heat to burn a body completely to ash, or at least a fire burning over a very long time. And the fire was burning over a very long time, but still, some fragment of bone, some scrap of a femur, something would be left behind, but we found none of it. So I'm pretty sure that whoever it was murdered him and then took the body away and then went back and set the longhouse on fire so that we would think he died in the fire. Or it could be something else, because there's also a lot of theories about what happened to him when he died, most of which I've thought up. Most people think he just died in the fire.
Lucirosi kind of directs his gaze towards Helweir.
Yeah.
Also, you're wearing his crown, which hasn't been seen since around the time he disappeared. So, did you murder our king?
I didn't murder him. He tried to murder me. And Helweir. And Lucirosi. Actually, he tried to murder all of us. He was an asshole. I'm your king now. I'm reclaiming my empire, and this village is the first stop.
Well, good luck with that, sire.
I'm the emperor of the. I'm the emperor of the empire. You know, the one empire.
I know the empire.
I've lost it. You see, and this is my first stop on regaining my emperorship.
All right, Elf. Triandal did not die in the Longhouse.
I know. He was murdered.
He was not murdered in the Longhouse either.
Well, sure. I mean, he didn't have to be in the Longhouse necessarily.
He was taken. He was taken by the Darkness Elf, and you best watch yourself, or it will take you too.
Who is the Darkness Elf?
It's not. It is not a Darkness Elf. It is the darkness. You simpleton.
The darkness? Okay, well, I have to admit, this is a new theory. Who is the darkness?
The white-haired thing. The white-haired creature. Which we keep hearing about.
Now, I've heard about these albino werewolves, and he makes air quotes. I've never actually heard of an albino werewolf, so I'm a little skeptical of that theory, but it's an interesting one. And clearly there was some sort of animal that Palace saw 2 nights ago. So you think that the disappearances are the product of whatever these creatures were, werewolves or whatever else?
Yes, they kidnapped they kidnapped him, and then they ripped his arms and legs off. And he died. Not in the Longhouse.
And you know this how?
Because
you murdered him?
No, I was Alkai Tor. I was him.
Well, it's certainly been nice. He pushes his bowl away. Certainly been nice chatting with all of you as he pushes his chair out and gets up and is backing away from you.
Before you leave, what do you know of Corral Hall?
Can you give me a hint on that? Is it a new kind of ale, or
we have no luck here.
Is it a place bigger than a bread box?
All right, thank you. Go away before I cut your head off. With these new axes I have.
So he turns and sprints out the door.
Are the axes even magical?
You're reason. I mean, like I said, they're either ceremonial or magical.
But when T-Hole was looking at magical auras and stuff.
Oh no, they would have lit up then.
Okay.
And they didn't?
They did.
They did? Okay.
Yeah. I just wasn't going over the things you had already found. The lenses are also magical, so they lit up as well.
So if I'm wearing magical lenses when I do detect magic, does that make it bright? Does that affect it even more? Because I got if I imagine it glows and I have these things in my eyes that now glow.
You can see through the glow, but yes, they also glow when you cast it. I mean, they only glow for you. You see the magical aura. It doesn't appear to everybody.
Yeah, I was just curious. Yeah.
No, it is cold.
Yeah,
Why is it cold?
You can smell. I mean, it's not so cold in here, but there's a fire in the hearth that's burning, and you can smell what smells to you like eggs and ham are cooking. As Haverford continues, he's looked up a couple times as you've been talking to Alon, but he hasn't interjected. And a minute later, he brings you over 3 plates of eggs and ham and toast.
Haverford, you're a chap. What do you know about this Alon fellow? He seemed rather interesting.
He's harmless. He's the town carpenter, so he's had a hand in building most of the homes around here, at least in the past 15, 20 years or so. He's a little bit of a he has 1,000 theories for everything that we can't explain, and he's always thinking of more all the time, and he loves to just sit around and discuss them. I did hear him. He is right. Like, that crown you're wearing does look an awful lot like the ones that our chieftain used to wear.
It's because it is.
I don't really. It does have that extra gem in the center of it, but
extra gem, you say?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. His didn't have that yellow gem in the middle.
I take the crown off and kind of look at it.
So there is a yellow sapphire in the middle that's prominently set in the top of the band.
Did it look like...
points to it and says, "Yeah, that was never there. The little yellow gems were there before, but not that big one."
What was in the middle?
It was just that was just horn. There's somebody put a little brass plate in there to hold the gem, I guess. It was just horn and brass before.
Can I make an investigation check to see if it's a relatively new sort of addition?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, I mean, you're looking at it closely. You're pretty sure it wasn't original to the crown. And the brass in that area is a little bit brighter than the rest of it, a little less aged. The rest of the crown looks pretty aged, and this brass looks to be pretty much brand new.
So I'll look to T-Hole and say perhaps Durandal had made an improvement to it recently. Or perhaps it seems, since there's some talk of either him or his brother foreseeing us coming to take the crown, that he had put that in place specifically for our needs.
Well, you would be able to put together pretty quickly that the note from Amras said that he re-enchanted the crown to protect him. So it would be very common if you were putting a new enchantment on something to add some new piece to it to hold it.
Gotcha. Well, given I know he was expecting us and all, but this could have been just as well for self-defense and protecting him.
I suppose.
Um,
So, how are we spending the rest of our day? Will we remain here at the inn, or are we going to find some way of being productive? You can tell Lushrosi's getting a little antsy.
I think we should see the stone.
Why would we need to go back to the monolith?
Because if this place is cold, as everyone is saying, it means the stone is not working.
Or the stone is different.
Or perhaps it's just that much colder in the surrounding area.
Well then, I do not know.
The stone isn't far. It wouldn't be that much out of our way to actually go walk there. I could use a good stretch to the legs myself.
I just don't see the point, but if both of you insist.
So, T-Hole's gonna go upstairs and put his clothes on, so he's out of his knickers, and he comes back down. He's like, "All right, let's go."
Okay, so you walk outside. It's pretty overcast to the point where you can't see direct sunlight. It's mostly cloud cover overhead, and it is colder than you remember. It's not like crazy disturbing colder, but it's probably right now 20 degrees colder than it would have been this time the day before. But that sometimes happens. That's not unheard of as winter gets closer. And you walk around down the path, making your way towards the Tor. No, I'm in the wrong thing. And when you get there, you see there is an elf who's there kneeling. He's in some sort of meditation or prayer. Pretty heavily bundled up because it's so cold outside.
Does the elf look familiar?
You definitely have seen him before. He was in the inn the morning prior when everybody came to talk to you about doing something about Gruzza.
Does this look like the Falconer?
No, he actually the Falconer arrived later because he doesn't necessarily blame Gruzza, so he wasn't there for that. He looks like he's one of the two people who look to be a fisherman.
But it's also not uncommon for the elves to come to pray here, given that this seems to be also close to their burial for the...
Yeah, there is a little cemetery next to the Tor.
Yeah.
And you found all those like figurines and poems around the Tor itself.
Yeah.
So this is the focus of their local religion.
Is their weather any different around the Tor?
No, not really. It's obviously still overcast. It's pretty much as cold. It's hard to tell if there's any distinct difference.
There's something going wrong around here.
And what makes you say that?
The magics aren't working the same as they should be.
And of all people, how would you know that, Hellweir?
I felt what Triandal did. I know the strength of this Tor.
Oh, then this piques T-Hole's interest. The strength of this Tor.
I just know that it keeps people warm.
Right. So once again, though, as we were approaching this town, it was snowing before, and eventually that turned to slush. The Tor makes things warmer, but that doesn't necessarily mean that because it is cold, it is not functioning. It may just simply be that much colder beyond the Tor.
Well, I do not know what then. I just know it feels strange.
And you see the elf opens his eyes and gets up and says a prayer and turns and sees you all. How are you? Have you made any progress in saving us?
Well, we're trying.
We think we may have some direction, but there are still some things that are beyond our understanding.
Would you know anything about Corral Hall?
I don't know the word.
All right, thank you. Stupid elf.
Forgive me for asking, but you seem to be wearing our chieftain's crown. Where did you find it? Did Graza have it?
Oh, no. Why would you think she would have this?
Well, she did leave town this morning.
Oh, do you know where she went?
No one. Graza is more powerful than the rest of us. No one would risk following her to be murdered in some far-off location. I know that she walked around the road going to the west. I mean, I would suggest if I know there was some debate about it, but if you were so inclined, this might be the perfect time to search her home. Normally, when she goes on her walk, she's away for hours, if not the whole day.
I'll leave the searching of her home to idiots.
Yes, she mentioned that people have already invaded her home and searched it for. It seems.
It makes sense that if she goes on these long walks, that she's obviously going to hide the incriminating evidence even better than she normally would.
Yes, but it seems a bit gratuitous at some point to invade somebody's space such as this with so little evidence rather than feelings and assumptions.
It seems like your brain is cursed, just like the swamp, you simple elf.
Please, Hellweir, you have to disrespect everybody that we come across. Not everything needs to be such... I don't even know anymore.
But
you can tell Lucirosi is getting a little bit tired of Hellweir.
Well, I bow to your greater wisdom than mine, but if you don't see that she's a part of it, then I can't understand why. And he shakes his head and starts walking off.
That's no way to treat your emperor.
What?
And
Emperor?
It's like, and I say, I am the emperor of the original empire. You know, the empire, and has been taken from me. And this village is my first step to regain my emperorship.
Lucirosi ignores T-Hole and says, listen, we are not opposed to investigating, but we need evidence before we invade somebody's space. We simply don't have any reason to believe other than people's beliefs and assumptions that Graza is in some way responsible. If there was something that you could give us that might provide us some reason to buy into this idea.
Well, maybe you need to follow Gruzza. Well, she has no explanation for where she goes during the days when she's wandering outside the village.
Yes, but you said that she's left a while ago, did you not?
Sure, and she does this every couple of days, so wait until the next time she leaves.
Hmm. I suppose we could if we are around for that much longer.
And can't your gods help you find her?
Hellway smiles.
Asheros certainly does assist those who are devoted to him. However, in this moment, I don't know if he could give me the direction that I seek in such a direct manner. Although I suppose if I were to wander, if Asheros saw it fit to bless me with his insight, I might be able to find her. But the magic that I have specifically prepared for this day with the prayers towards Asheros are for different purposes.
Well, Hector's quite a tracker. I mean, if you wanted to find her, he might be able to follow her tracks.
Did Hector and Graza not adventure in the past?
That's true. He probably has some sympathy for her.
So this is the quandary that I have, because Graza and Hector and Hector's wife, I forget her name.
Palace.
Hallis. Hector and Hallis, they are brothers in arms, brothers and sisters in arms. And so I'm curious, what do you see in that relationship?
I
Do you notice them interacting?
Sure, they used to interact all the time. At least when Gruzza first got here, they would hang out a lot. Now, not so much. You don't hear them together. Maybe they're visiting and I just don't notice. I live on the other side of the village.
Was there a falling out of sorts?
Not that I'm aware of specifically. Maybe Hector finally began to see her true colors and realized how dangerous she was. That'd be enough to keep any parent away from her.
Right, but if they were adventuring together, I'm sure that he already had an idea of how dangerous she might be.
Right, I'm sure he knew that she was lethal with her axes, but that she was evil probably eluded him. I mean, he traveled with her for a long time, is my understanding. She must have hid her true evil well.
Have you ever known anybody to be so capable of hiding their true nature?
I've lived my whole life here in this village, so no, not for that long, but I don't know exactly how long they were together. And there probably was quite enough killing to keep her murderous impulses in check.
You know, that's possible, I suppose, but it just seems rather unlikely that somebody's nature could be so well kept that there are no signs at all to what is really going on underneath.
Well, I don't know either of them that well. For all I know, he'd be the first to say that he thinks she has a murderous streak.
Have Hector and Hellas ever been vocal or aligned with Siobhan or
Siobhan. Well, I mean, they're both members of the militia. I think they get along well enough.
Yes, but what I mean is because Shaban seems so adamant that Graza is the one behind these attacks. What have Hector and Hellas, how have they reacted to these accusations and Shaban's zealousy?
Well, I know that they don't personally ascribe to Gruzza the guilt for all of the disappearances, but I don't think that they think she's a good person. And I'm sure they're giving her the benefit of the doubt, but they're doing it foolishly.
What makes you say that they do it foolishly?
Well, if you give the benefit of the doubt to a murderer, you're being pretty foolish.
Yes, but if you're still, if you have not caught the person directly with the weapon above them, there's
You're
always a
not
sense of doubt, is there not?
you're not looking into Gruzza at all, are you? You're just defending her.
No, I am not. I am not defending anybody, but I am trying to keep a level head. It seems that a lot of people are very invested in solving these murders quickly rather than effectively. And I have seen that painting a target on somebody as a scapegoat is a very good way of concealing who is actually responsible. So I am just simply trying to ascertain whether the worries and concerns of the townsfolk in directing their anguish and rage towards Graza is not, in fact, blinding them to those that are truly responsible.
I mean, there could be others responsible. That I'll grant you.
All right.
But I'm sure you'll find it in addition to Gruzza.
But still, I have heard that many people have searched her home without finding any evidence.
Right,
And
which is any evidence of anything whatsoever. So that's suspicious already.
Lucirosi, you waste your breath. There is no convincing.
Yes.
There is no
Do you-
convincing the already convinced.
Do you hear voices in the night, Elf?
There are the moans that come from Gruzza's house.
But outside Gross's house, maybe to the north.
I've never heard what I would call voices to the north.
What do you hear?
I mean, there are people who live north of me. You hear their voices.
Fair enough.
I'm sorry, but I must ask, outside of seeing lights in the vicinity of Graza's house, what else is the townsfolk using as evidence to determine that she is the guilty party in this?
Let's see. She moves here, and then people start disappearing. She hates us. She won't leave, even though she hates us. That noble dwarf turns up and tells us all she's a murderer and is investigating her and is 100% convinced she's a murderer. What exactly do we need here to connect the dots?
Do you know the lights? Oh, sorry, you go.
I was just going to say, forgive my vulgarness, but there is a proverb that I've heard before. One does not defecate where they eat. And so if Graza is so inclined to remain here, and if it is so clear that she does not appreciate the company that this village provides, to what benefit would it be to her to engage in this endeavor of slaughtering others?
Magical lights around her house. How much blood do wizards need to conduct their dark rituals?
Lots of blood.
See? Right there.
Lots and lots of blood. In fact, you look a little flush. Anyways, I would recommend that you take a swim and spend an evening out on the Amrath Island.
Swim. You'd be
Or
dead
take
in 5 minutes if you went into the water this time of year.
or take a boat, whatever you prefer. But I would recommend, if you firmly believe that of the lights around Grez's house, take a boat over to the island and spend the night there.
I see what you're saying. You're saying I'll find out something if I spy on Greza from the other island. That makes
Exactly.
sense.
Exactly.
My wife
can-
and I will do that. Thank you very much. And he begins to hurry off.
Good. Maybe they will find my elf ears there.
It's his doom. But shall we commence to was that not Elise? Shall we head to the Falconer?
Well, we can do that, or we could have our ranger make way in finding Graza.
I can only assume she's hunting for resources, but we could definitely do that as well.
That works for me. Might be fun, like a scavenger hunt. It's been a long time since I've done a scavenger hunt.
So yeah, I guess we start going on the path to the west. Is the last known position?
Yeah, he said she was going west.
Yeah.
So you're not, I mean, there's no direct west path until you get up further to the north. So
Yeah.
you proceed to go around. Everybody give me a perception check. Right. Lucia Rossi is the only one who sees this. You're passing by. There's a sign out front. It's as you're passing by a farmhouse that's seen better days. It looks a little bit run down. It's the only house on this lane that appears to be built from stone rather than wood. And it has a slate roof rather than the thatched roof that most of them have. But the fence around it's been torn down, and the windows, which still have some glass in them, have been shattered. There's a door on the, or rather a sign on the path leading up to it that says the Falkirk Mining Company. But as you approach it, you see that there's a slim window leading into the basement, and the glass is cloudy. It's almost opaque. But as you are looking at it, you see two yellow dots behind the glass, and you realize it's a pair of almost cat-like eyes. But the moment you meet its gaze, they vanish.
All right. How far away is this from me?
It's about 30 feet off the road, so it's about 30 feet.
Okay. So one thing that I'm going to do is immediately start activating my divine sense. I know that it's probably blocked by the barriers of the home, but that's fine. I'll just try to maintain the concentration on it.
You 100% for sure detect that there's a corrupted being there in the basement.
Okay. So I motion to my companions, hey, guys, there's something dark within that building. I saw something. Asteros has directed me to check this place out.
Very well.
So very cautiously, I'll approach the door, but I'll be looking very closely at any of the windows or whatever I can see from within.
So, looking through the windows as you approach, you don't see anything moving. You definitely see there's, still furniture in the house, but you don't see any people inside.
Is it dark within, or are the windows giving enough light that it can be seen clearly within there?
It's still relatively early, so what sun there is going through the windows, but it's there's no lights inside. So from your vantage point on the outside, the windows look pretty dark.
Okay. So I'm gonna whisper to everybody, we must be quiet. We must try to tread lightly. There is something within, and we need to be on guard.
You sound more crazy than these elves.
Sounds good.
Whatever, Goliath. Let's go. So then I'll go in through the door.
Opening the
Try to
door,
look
you
around.
see this house is, particularly for a village this small, fairly richly furnished. It's not over the top richly furnished, but there are like cloth couches that you can see. The fireplace is relatively ornate, built of stone. Over the top of the fireplace, you see that there's a pick that's either silver or more likely plated in silver that's hanging over the top of the mantle. The home looks as if it is incredibly dusty inside, and so it looks as if no one has been here in a while. But everybody, give me an investigation check. T-Hole sees certainly that in the dust, particularly if you get really close and hunch down, you see there are very clearly large bipedal footprints that have kicked up a lot of the dust. They're definitely, they could be humanoid, but they're definitely not human. They're definitely almost more animal-like, almost wolf-like than human-like.
Does Lucharosi understand the significance that silver could have in fighting creatures?
Yeah, I would say you would know some things are vulnerable to silver.
All right. And so seeing that silver plated pick, you said?
Yep.
Just in case Lucharosi would go over and grab it.
So you grab it. It's fairly weighty. It's clearly, I mean, it's more of a mining pick than a war pick, but it could certainly be used as a weapon easily enough.
Okay.
He told you to be a thief now as well.
Shh. We need to focus. So do I see any way of going downstairs?
There are several doors in this room. It doesn't appear, this appears to be basically like a single level house. So you can see across the room there is an area that looks to be more like a dining area that sort of blends directly into a living room area. But then there are 3 other doors that lead out of this room, plus the door you came in.
All right. So best way to figure that out is door number 2.
So you open up the second door, and you're immediately, you smell, there's some sort of chemical-ish smell coming out of it, but you do see a stairwell that leads down into the darkness.
All right. So I will lead the way, but before I go down, knowing that my companions cannot see in the dark, I'll let them know, wait for my signal. I will cast light upon this pick should the need arise. And then continue down into the cellar.
Okay, so I have over in the character section under the journal a sort of permanent torch you can drag and drop that we will use to represent the pick being lit up.
Okay. Oh wait, but that's not happening now.
Right.
I'm sorry, guys, but I'm like falling asleep. I didn't get a whole lot of sleep last night.
Okay. Well, then
I'm barely
this is-
hanging on.
this is a fair place to put it on hold then.
Okay.
We're gonna do Tuesday, right?
Yep.
And next Thursday, or are we continuing Mike's game next Thursday?
Next Thursday, I'm out of town.
Yeah, and so
okay.
is
Yeah, everyone's out of town yet.
All right.
So my game will be continuing on the 21st.
Okay. Sounds good.
2 weeks. All right, cool.
Sorry, guys. I'll see you Tuesday.
Yeah, see you Tuesday.
See you, man.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Yeah. Cool stuff. See you, man.